a single ticket could change the trajectory of her life.
This is where an $83 million jackpot was hit through a Courier.
And that's at jeopardy here.
We don't know if that was legit or not.
We have this situation. This lady supposedly bought this ticket. She's saying, I'm the winner. She has a ticket that says she's a winner. On the other hand, we have the state of Texas saying, hold on, we need to look and do an investigation here. This is a big dollar amount. This has been built in Texas because about 2 years ago, someone went through Jackpot in Texas, bought enough tickets to cover all or 99% of all the options. They spent like $25 million. And of course, they won a little over $90 million. That brought some attention to this.
If I was her, I'd be thinking, why didn't you guys just shut it down then? Now you guys are all of a sudden halting operations and looking into this and not giving me my money.
We're having the second in command in a state, a big state, involving themselves in the lottery.
If people are going to have confidence in the lottery, we have to be sure that no one has an advantage.
I'm wondering whether there's something going on there where we just haven't heard about yet. Panusis, thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk to you about an incredible, unbelievable situation going on with the Texas lottery right now, and a woman who won more than $80 million through a third-party courier service. She picked her own numbers. She won. She was ecstatic, only to find out a little bit later that the Texas lottery was not going to pay her out amid an investigation. So I figured I'd reach out to you about this. You've been practicing wills, trusts, and estates as an attorney for about 35 years, 7 years as a CPA, and you limited your practice to just helping out lottery winners. And you have been the nation's top lottery attorney, helping more than 50 winners who won $1 million or more. And of course, that historic national lottery jackpot of more than $1 billion just a few years ago. I know you've been dissecting this case out of Texas. What's going on here?
Well, thanks for having me. Again, this situation is very unique. It's something that has probably been brewing over the last few years, especially in Texas. We have this situation. This lady supposedly bought this ticket, and the state of Texas is saying, wait a minute, you're not the winner. She's saying, I'm the winner. She has a ticket that says she's a winner, and her attorney's saying she's a winner. And the attorney is saying, we're going to file a lawsuit to say that she's the winner and you need to pay her. On the other hand, we have the Texas lottery saying, and the state of Texas saying, hold on, all she is the claimant. She's not the winner yet. We haven't determined her to be the winner. We need to look and do an investigation here. This is a big dollar amount. We want the integrity of the system to be intact. You know, she said she bought this ticket through Jackpot. Texas is one of like maybe 30 states that allow for courier services. Maybe about 2019, I think, is the time period when they became, visible for people. And couriers say, hey, listen, you don't have to leave your house. All you have to do is contact us either by email or by phone, and we'll buy your tickets for you. And so, the courier then gets this information. They go to a retailer, they buy the tickets from the retailer, they go back, they send the information to the customer saying, I got your tickets, here's your number, we have your ticket. If it's a jackpot ticket, we put it in a safe place and we notify you immediately. Otherwise, we just put the money in your account if it's a small amount. So we now have these courier systems out there, of which there are three main ones. There's Jackpot, which is the courier service that we're talking about right now in Texas. There's lotto.com and there's jackpot.com. The reason why Jackpot is probably being isolated here, I would think, is we're dealing with a company that the parent company of Jackpot is DraftKings, which is a huge gambling operation. It's all legal, obviously. We can't watch TV today without seeing someone telling me the odds in Vegas. Unfortunately, this has been built in Texas because about 2 years ago, someone went through Jackpot in Texas, some organization, group, because it just wasn't one person, and they essentially made sure that they bought enough tickets to cover all or 99% of all the options. They spent like $25 million. And of course, they won a little over $90 million. So it was a good day. So, they won some type of I don't know if it was a Powerball or Mega Million, but they were the winners. And, that brought some attention to this. Unfortunately, this was a bad day for the state of Texas, especially their lottery commission, when it was a guaranteed win. They bought $25 million worth of tickets somehow. And that's pretty hard to do, to have one machine. Yeah, I can't go to a grocery store and buy $25 million worth of tickets. I'd be there for weeks. So obviously this was done somewhere where there were multiple machines. So long story short, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, when he heard about this in 2023, started raising some eyebrows with the Texas Lottery Commission. And there was some shift in that Texas Lottery Commission. There were some people that said, hey, I'm out. And the governor then reappoints someone to be the commissioner. So they did that. But after this current situation in Texas, which just happened a couple months ago, the lieutenant governor had gone out and he said, hey, let me take a look at this store.
This is where an $83 million jackpot was hit through a courier. That's being looked at now. We don't know if that was legit or not.
So he went to the Winning Corner store, walked inside. He saw that there was, some games that someone could buy and a lottery machine. There, one machine. So, he asked some questions, and then he asked, is there anything going on in the back room? And they said, well, we'll let you in there, but you have to turn off your cameras. So they turned off the cameras, and he went in there. I think he went in there by himself and reported back that, yeah, in this back room, there was a room with machines, and there was 46 other machines there just churning out lottery tickets. Now are they churning them out just for Texas? Are they for other states, other places? But the whole operation, the courier service, Jackpocket, the store, the Winning Corner store, all were owned by the same company, basically DraftKings. And so it was a big operation. So that's when he said, hey, I'm going to ask for the Texas Rangers to come out and do an investigation here, because I'm not comfortable, he said, with the integrity of the game at this point in time.
The bottom line is, if people are going to have confidence in the lottery, we have to be sure that no one has an advantage. And again, we're not suggesting anything illegal, but this is not the way the lottery was designed to operate. It was designed to operate by someone coming into a store, giving someone cash, and getting a ticket back. Not for machines behind walls, and not from a courier service and a retailer all being connected. And so when someone wins a ticket here for $83 million, it makes everyone ask a lot of questions.
We're talking about a large amount of money. What was this win for? It was like 80 million or something like that.
More than 83.5 million, something like that. Yeah.
So it's a lot of money. So the state of Texas is going to say, hey, we're going to do our investigation here. All you are is to claim. We have not declared you to be the actual winner yet. So it's a big issue, obviously. And what's going to be worse is if for some reason they say and they indicate to this woman who was a Jane Doe and now is Kristen Moriarty, which, I think that was a big mistake by bringing her name out, but for her personally. But, they're going to say, okay, if she's not the winner, and it's been rolling over ever since. And right now, if you looked at it, it's around $26 to $30 million since that time when she bought it. The question is, if I went there today and I won, and I said, hey, wait a minute, I shouldn't just get 30. I should get the 30 plus the other 80 because she was not declared the winner. So it would have rolled over, and now I'm the winner. So it's going to create a big issue.
Correct. And that's why this is such a big issue. Of course, if you're the winner, and you know what? You're going to bring up an interesting point I want to get into a little bit later, in that at first she was a Jane Doe. I mean, if you win millions of dollars, I see people talking about this all the time. I mean, it's best practice to stay anonymous because of all the ripple effects that could happen afterwards. And especially in Texas, is something you want to take advantage of. If you win more than $1 million there, you can stay anonymous. And we see Jane Doe lawsuits when there's merit all the time. So the fact that she's public now, that's questionable. I want to get into that a little bit later, but I want to first talk about the optics here, because it's not good. I mean, she was a Jane Doe. Now we know she's Kristen Moriarty. She went public in mid the lawsuit. And devil's advocate here, if I'm her, or if I put myself in that same exact position, I'm thinking, okay, so there was this issue with the Courier service a couple of years ago with that, that investor who bought millions and millions of tickets and won. I think there's merit to look into that. Hey, are you allowed to actually take advantage of the system that way? But if I was her, I'd be thinking, why didn't you guys just shut it down then? I have nothing to do with that. I bought a couple tickets. I called over the phone. I picked the tickets, which I actually want to get your opinion on that too. And now you guys are all of a sudden halting operations and looking into this and not giving me my money. That doesn't look good just from an optic standpoint. So do you agree with that? And
yeah, no question. So in my heart, I have to say, if this lady has a physical ticket and it has those winning numbers on it, and she just bought it, through a company, legally, which she did, she paid money and she got it at the time, the state of Texas should pay her the funds. I mean, there's no question about it. The problem is the courier service in Texas, like in other states, is unregulated. They regulate the retailers, which means the corner store was regulated, but not the courier service. The problem here is the courier service was owned by the store. So Winning Corners owned the store. And so they had one machine out front and 46 in the back printing out numbers. And that's where Texas Lottery could say, hey, wait a minute, this was not part of your retailer agreement. And because of that, you violated the agreement. So tickets, we'll give the money back to the people, and Texas will give everyone back that bought tickets from you their money back, but we're not going to pay out that kind of money. So bring in your tickets, we'll give you $2. Imagine that.
And that's going to be a mess. If that happens, it's going to be a mess. I think people are going to lose trust in the lottery. I think that's going to have some major ripple effects.
That's really already happening. When you look around the United States, there's so many people that today will say, well, I'm not going to play because someone in California wins all the time. Well, there's a lot more people in California, and, it's a state where it's tax-free to purchase tickets. When you look at the states that win a lot, Florida, of course, Texas, California, they're all states that have income tax-free issues. So if there's companies that are buying tickets, they're going to buy them through a courier service that works there. So that way, why pay the extra 5%? I mean, I get people that contact me all the time and go, what is your fee for helping me? For helping me stay private and anonymous, for being able to live my life comfortably. What is your fee, Kurt, for that? I have to deal with that daily. So a state that's charging 10%, that's a big deal to a lot of people.
So with that said, I'm just curious, is she the winner at the mercy of the investigation that Texas has initiated? Or, I'm just wondering, if you were her attorney, first of all, would you try to keep her anonymous? Can you? And how would you be advocating for her or practicing, trying to get her ticket? Is it a waiting game? Is there something the attorney can do here that expedites this process?
Sure. So, what I've learned over the years is you cannot be confrontational with the state lottery departments. Okay. There's usually a commission, but you never talk to the commissioners because they're appointed by people, and then they put the people in place. And there's a director of each state lottery, and he or she has a staff, and the staff consists of an attorney or two, and then claim people and security people. So what I've learned is, and it took a while for me to learn, is these people that work in the state lotteries, they need to be my friends. I need to work with them. We need to work things out. They understand that my role is to go there and claim a ticket for someone and claim it in a fashion where the person's not identified, for the safety of the person, and also for them to be able to live their life comfortably afterwards with these funds. So my goal is anonymity, protection of the client, and making sure the client has a life to live with this newfound fortune that they have. So I got to work with the lottery. I can't be suing them. I can't be arguing with them. Let's try to find a place that we can all agree. The lottery is represented, state lotteries are represented by the Attorney General office in that state. So you have the Attorney General representing the lottery, and then you have the claimant that has an attorney. In this particular case, state of Texas says, hey, if you win $1 million, you could just say you want to be anonymous. Well, I get calls all the time from people in Texas, that say, hey, talk to me about if I win, what would you do? How would you do it? And, I don't like to ever give away my trade secrets because I've spent a lot of time and effort putting them together. But, I tell people, well, yes, you can claim anonymously. And if you win $500,000 or $1 million, it's probably not that big of a deal. But if you win more than that, you want to take some steps to cover your tracks. So there is something called freedom of information requests, where people can make a request to find out information about the lottery winner. So even though you have a state that says you can claim anonymously, I still try to convince the client it's better to set up a trust or an LLC or a combination or a group or a club, just so that we cover your tracks so that no one will know and no one can find out. Now, in this particular case with this Kristen Moriarty, she started out as a Jane Doe. Great. I'm happy for that. I assumed that when I first heard about this case, that someone that, you have this one attorney, maybe he's more of a litigation attorney, that he would bring in a transactional attorney to help him with the process and say, hey, what do? I don't do this work. I do litigation work. Tell me. And I've done this with other attorneys. Attorneys call me up and say, hey, we have a client, and I'll come in and say, okay, this is why we're going to do it. This is my job. This is what you're going to do, and we're going to work this together. Okay. And it's good sometimes to have litigation people with you because there's a threat of litigation. So you always like having them with you. It's having guns in your holster, and they have bullets. So, that's a good thing. But in this particular case, we have someone who started out as Jane Doe and then goes to court and gives up her name. And I'm like, you didn't need to do that. I mean, there was a large court case a couple of years ago in New Hampshire where a lady, she ended up signing the back of her ticket. And New Hampshire said, once you sign the back of the ticket, we identify you. And she said, I didn't know that. I was following the rules of New Hampshire. And it said, sign the back of the ticket. So I signed the back of the ticket, like other states. If you look at any website for a lottery, it says, sign the back of the ticket. And as I've always said, don't do that. Put the ticket in a safe place. But, this lady signed the ticket, realized that she made a mistake. She went out and engaged a law firm. They went through a lengthy legal battle. And New Hampshire said, yes, absolutely. The chances of someone robbing you, the chances of someone holding someone hostage, the chances of something bad happening to you or an accident, is great. We need to protect you. So we're going to allow. So again, it was a Jane Doe suit all the way through. So in this particular case, you could easily have done that. Hopefully you would have had an attorney represent the winning ticket for her and have a trust do it. So that way the attorney's name would be on the lawsuit instead of even Jane Doe, which I think would have been a better scenario. If this lady needed to testify, all you needed to do is say, Your Honor, we would like to go into chambers to talk about this because, we want to keep her anonymity. The judge would understand that. And I think that was a big mistake. Again, personal injury attorneys do things differently than transactional attorneys. I'm the person that says, no, anonymity is important. You're going to thank me for it afterwards when you can live your life. So I don't know how this all happened, but this is the way it's set. It went into play in Texas. This lady's now being identified. She doesn't have the money to even leave the state to go someplace else to do something. She's got no money. It's just a claim at this point in time. And Texas is saying, you're not the winner, you're the claimant.
Yeah, it's like splitting hairs. And I'm also wondering, is the method of going public is the reason to put it into the court of public opinion. I think she told some local outlets there or said this in court, but she was quoted saying something along the lines of, I'm tired of being ignored. I think the sentiment there is, I want my voice to be heard. And I'm just wondering, because there's trust issues with the lottery, now there's this investigation that exacerbates that. Is she basically saying, hey, I want people to put a face to this person who won, who participated in the lottery, And if you kind of get this consensus among the public, you put pressure on the government, maybe they let this slide by, or, maybe this expedites the process. Is that the strategy?
That's obviously the strategy, but my response to that is, if that's truly the best way to go, and in most cases, people would do that, then why is it that most defendants in like murder cases don't take the stand and say, hey, listen to me, I didn't do it? We always tell people as attorneys, don't take the stand. Let them prove their case. And again, this could have been an attorney in there as the trustee of a trust to say, listen, my client is a 57-year-old woman. She's got 2 kids. She's got this. This is her future. You're playing with her future. And so, because, someone could have painted the picture for her. And that's what a good attorney should be doing, is painting the picture. I always say that, put the plan together, paint the picture, so that, you have a screen that you could paint whatever you want. That's why I say don't sign the back of the ticket. Let's talk about it. Let's determine the game plan, and then let's paint that picture that we want, so that's how we claim the ticket.
Right. And you've once told me that, like, when you're talking to these potential clients that call in, they say, Kurt, I've won 70 million, Kurt, I've won, $3 million. They're ecstatic. They probably didn't get sleep. They are all over the place because of how exciting this is. And you kind of have to play that counselor, like, hey, calm down. This is the process. You walk them through it. You paint that picture. In a case like this, you would imagine she's probably super, I don't want to use the word depressed. Maybe she is super optimistic, but like, this is a time in her life where a single ticket could change the trajectory of her life. And that's at jeopardy here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about someone who, I don't know her background, but I have clients all the time. I'm dealing with someone right now with a case. Again, I contacted the lottery and said, what's the status on this claim? And they go, we're working on it. The client's calling 3 or 4 times a day. Hey, it's been a week. It's, a week from when they told me. And I said, just calm down. We have to work. I've learned I have to work with the lottery offices. That's what helps generate a respect on both sides. And again, you don't want to have fights with them. So, working with them is helpful to future clients as well. So clients want this money immediately. They think all it is a claim. And that's also a problem with my practice. And someone calls me up and says, okay, I won $10 million. I need to go claim this. How much are you going to charge me? And I go, well, I don't know. Let's talk about the state rules and the state laws. Let's talk about where you want to be a year from now. Who would you have helped out? We don't want to pay gift taxes by not transferring a piece of the winning ticket to these people now ahead of time. So you want to put a plan together. You want the client to understand that plan. You want them to understand the difference between taking the annuity and the lump sum, and why there's a difference. And you want them to see the projections, numbers. And that takes a while to do, but the client doesn't understand that. They just think, hey, I want this money. In this particular case, this lady's probably focused in on, what's it, $83 million? Well, it's not going to be $83 million. By the time they take a lump sum, it'll be about half of that. And by the time they take out, third and taxes, federal taxes, it's going to be about $28 to $30 million. So that's how she's got to be planning for this, not $83 million. Oh, I'm going to do all this charitable stuff. I'm going to do this for my family. No, it's $30 million, which still is a heck of a lot of money, but it's a lot different than a plan for $80 million. So that's what we got to be looking at, is the net effect of all this is she's going to have $30 million after all taxes. And that's without her attorney fee. God knows what this injury attorney is going to be charging her. Traditionally those people, charge a percentage for their work. So
what aspect of this are we not getting into right now? What else is interesting about this? There's the Courier service. Yeah.
As I said, you're talking about probably an abuse of the system. We have a retailer that figured out a way somehow to have a whole bunch of machines in the back printing out tickets for a company Now, if I have that app that says I can buy a ticket from Jackpocket, chances are Jackpocket is sending me other apps to gamble and do other things, possibly on DraftKings. So it's big business trying to expand their business. It's not really what the lottery was created for. The lottery was created for you walk into a store, you buy your ticket. I got upset when a lot of these state lotteries started selling tickets online. You set up an online account, and, that's hard in some cases to say the person should be anonymous because of the state laws. So not only did we change from just buying individual tickets to lottery online services, but now we have these courier services that, are doing things, and they're unregulated in many states. And I think a lot of states are going to be looking at how they're going to be dealing with Jackpocket and Lotto.com and Jackpot.com. I think it's all going to hit the fan here pretty soon, which means they're not going to be selling as many tickets. Plus, people are going to say, hey, the lottery's rigged, if they're not already saying that. The lottery's rigged. So lottery revenues are going to go down. So that means games are going to change. And it's going to be interesting. I told you the other day, I went to Colorado to help a lottery winner. And, I walked into the Lakewood office. I mean, there's one employee there, and that's the Denver office. When you think about it, there's one employee there, a security guard, and there's like a little hallway. There's not a lot of money that's going into that office right there. It's part of the DMV. There's no place to sit down. There's no place to talk to the person privately that works for the state lottery. It's very difficult. So there's not a lot of excess money going out to employees. You talk to these employees that work for state lotteries, they're getting a little bit over minimum wage, and they're told, well, you can't play the lottery. So all they do all day is deal with people that are happy, that are winning money, and they and their family can't even play. And they're locked up into these little rooms many times without any windows. It's not a fun place for them. You need to be able to work with them. You can't be yelling at them. So the people that make the money, it's the commissioner. The commissioner has a job, and the commissioner should be doing their job as opposed to running around town, shaking hands with people. They should be spending more time investigating some of these concerns and bringing these concerns to the commission. But again, they get appointed, so they want to keep their job. They don't want to ruffle the feathers for anyone because it's a great gig in most cases. So again, it's it's a concern that our states need to deal with. And I don't know if the fallout of this is, imagine if this was a multi-state win, one of the Powerballs or the Mega Million. So now you're bringing all the states into it. This is just a Texas lottery issue because it's the Texas Lotto. It wasn't Powerball, Mega Million, Cash for Life. So I think what this is going to do is have all the other states look at their rules and regulations, and may turn out to be the end of Powerball and Mega Million as we know it, and that every state's going to have their own rules, and they're going to say, hey, this is how we're going to run our state lottery. It's going to be different than your state lottery. Again, we're living in a political environment where the federal government is saying, send everything back down to the state. Let the state do this. State can make their own laws. So it might do the same thing with this. Who knows?
So because it's such a debacle right now in Texas, you're saying that maybe the ripple effect is that states are going to dissect what their own policies are, their partnerships with these courier services, and saying, the hell with it, we're not going to deal with this. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, yes, because, here you have in this case, the lieutenant governor spending how much time on a lottery issue when he should be doing other things in the state. I mean, you're having the second in command in a state, a big state, involving themselves in the lottery. That should not be happening. I mean, that should not be happening. So I think there's going to be a bigger fallout on this, and states are going to say, hey, we're going to exit the multi-state and just be our own lottery.
That is so interesting. So is there something that we just don't know with the Texas lottery? Because you're so right. It's like with all the issues happening domestically in the United States right now, a lot of it in Texas as well, the lieutenant governor is investing his time investigating a lottery win. See, that's when you say it that way, I'm just like, what? There has to be something more going on besides this. I mean, of course, a couple years ago, they had that debacle with the person who bought every combination and ended up winning. But, people always talk about more regulations or, I mean, at least like transparency and auditing the lottery. I'm wondering whether there's something going on there where we just haven't heard about yet.
Well, it would be a really big issue if the person that won was not this Kristen Moriarty, that it was, someone who was, crossed over the border, is, working in some, grove someplace and ended up buying a $2 lottery ticket, and he or she won. That, has no social security number, has no, imagine that, the public outcry on that as well. So Kristen
and what
Moriarty,
you mean by that, and I'm sorry, just want to be clear here. What you mean by that is because it's because to purchase a ticket in Texas, you have to be a Texas resident, right? But with these courier services, you could call from anywhere, correct?
Well, okay, so you have to be a Texas resident to buy a Texas courier ticket. But
Right.
anyone could cross over from Mexico and go right to Texas, El Paso, and buy a lottery ticket. The only difference there is they withhold 30% rather than 24%. That's the only difference. Imagine this Kristen Moriarty is saying, hey, oh, woe is me. I'm tired of being overlooked. But imagine if it wasn't Kristen Moriarty at this point, Jane Doe, Kristen Moriarty. Imagine if it was someone who doesn't have a social security number that came over and is working in the field someplace and used their check to buy it, or used their cash to buy a lottery ticket and won. Would there be this much outcry at this point? I mean, I don't know, but
Right.
It certainly bothers me because they're both entitled to the same treatment. But someone may not care about the one person where they care about Kristen.
And maybe that's why when she was anonymous, there's so much ambiguity to who this person was. She wants to put a face to this win. She wants
Correct.
people to know, hey, I'm a real person. I work just as hard as anybody else does. This was an amazing experience, but oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Kurt. I want to go back to
I was going to tell you, I looked this up, said that the third-party couriers, jackpot and lotto.com, sold over 226 million tickets in 2024. The top 5 other retailers sold 34 million. Does that put it in perspective for you as to why this is an issue?
Spell it out for me. I do have an idea here, except the states utilize these courier services because it helps them sell more tickets. It's money for the states. It's an income for them.
Correct. And they're hoping that the winner for these tickets, for these big items, is a Texas resident, because then the state of Texas gets the extra bonus in it. But third-party couriers, 226 million versus 34 million of the top 5 combined. That's just a lot of these couriers are unregulated. How is that possible? That's a slip up in the Texas system. And that's where I think how Randy Howry got involved, because he is someone who has been fighting the fight for Texas ethics. And he thinks that there's not enough ethics in Texas. So, he lost being the president-elect of the Bar Association. He's been fighting, and his firm has filed briefs and for various entities against the Texas Ethics Commission and wants change in that. And so now he happens to be the attorney representing this Jane Doe in this big lawsuit against the state of Texas and the Lottery Commission, and it's about integrity. I mean, this was planned out. This was not something that just appeared.
I'm wondering, how do you even get in contact? Because from my understanding, I don't know if this is a state-by-state thing or if it's nationwide, where attorneys can't contact a potential client, right? The client has to reach out to them, right?
He would know who this person is, but somehow
right.
This lady, 2.5 hours away, decided, I need to go to Austin and hire this particular attorney who has no experience in lottery claims. That I'm going to hire him to help me through this process. That just seems weird to me.
And
there's something there that I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, if you don't, then I sure don't either. I kind of want to go back to the courier services because before any of this happened in Texas, I remember 4 or 5 months ago when we did our first interview for the YouTube channel, you basically said you cautioned lottery customers to be wary about purchasing tickets online through third parties, to be cautious about third-party couriers because of some of the obstacles that might happen because they're kind of the middleman here. Was this the type of situation that's like a ground zero, like this is what could happen with these, or are there other issues that could pop up too?
Yeah, this was not what I was thinking about. I mean, this is a, an assembly line in some back room that's just printing out potential tickets. What I was concerned about is someone on Saturday night deciding to buy a Powerball ticket like 5 minutes before the end and calling the courier service and say, hey, get me a ticket. So the courier service ran across the street, got the ticket, was the last person to buy a ticket, runs back across the street, the lottery goes off and determines that ticket was the winning ticket. And the courier goes, hell, I'm not sending this to this lady. I'm going to keep this for myself and get another ticket and send it to her that she lost. And then the courier was the winner. So that's what I was concerned about. Who are these couriers? I mean, generally, if you have a courier, how much are you paying them? It's not going to be big dollars. I mean, we hear stories all the time about, I get calls all the time about people that say, hey, I won $1,000 or I won $500. I took my ticket back to the 7-Eleven, gave it to the attendant, and they go, oh, I have to go in the back room. And they go to the back room and they come out with another ticket and give the person their ticket back and say, I don't think you're a winner. And they keep the ticket that was the winner. They switch it and they leave that day. So that happens all the time, at stores. So never, I tell people all the time, never mail in your tickets to any state lottery. Always keep possession of your ticket when you go into a store. Check it on an app or something like that. Don't give it to the attendant unless you go into a well-known grocery store where they have cameras and everything like that, where the person can't run away. But it happens all the time. But I was concerned about someone buying the ticket at the end of the night, and it was right before the lottery closed down and produced the winning numbers. And the person didn't have a chance to send someone their numbers, but they found out that it was a winning ticket and they keep it for themselves and not give them the winning ticket. That's what I was concerned about.
Gotcha. This Kristen Moriarty, if everything was legal and kosher about that, man, I hope she gets her money. I mean, if she's playing the lottery like anybody else does, those are. If she picked these numbers and she had a ticket and that ticket had those numbers and it was on a Texas lottery, she is entitled to those funds. Absolutely. Now, the Texas lottery could say, hey, wait a minute, we had to pay out. We have a problem with the retailer, with the courier service. We're going to bring a lawsuit against them. But see, the lotteries don't do this. The lottery says, we're going to take our time. We're going to wait on this. We're going to say they're just a claimant until we make a decision. We investigate everything, and eventually the person says, all right, just give me anything. I want to get this over with. And maybe they do a settlement somehow. California's had all kinds of problems with lotteries in the past. There's been a whole bunch of whistleblowers within their security department that said, hey, the state of California has done these things incorrectly. So there's all these problems with lotteries. It's gambling, it's big money. I always said that, these people that work in gambling, work in lotteries, that it's a tax on poor people for the most part. It's wonderful that people get a chance to have a dream and, they keep dreaming that they're going to win next week or the week after that. And so dreams are good. But, unfortunately, there's just a lot of negative things that happen with gambling. And this is just an example of one, one that we haven't heard of so far. This is the new one. And as I told you, I pulled a form and wherever these blue states are, which Texas is right there, including Florida, those are all unregulated courier service states. Unregulated. That's a lot of states. The states where they're prohibited are California, Wisconsin, Indiana, and those are three of the toughest states to work in when you're trying to claim a ticket.
and they don't even allow courier services. So, and then some states, all the white states there, all those white states, no courier services allowed. So, I think the problem is that states need to get rid of these courier services. They should probably get rid of the online apps, but I think the online app, it can be regulated easily by the state. And people say, hey, I'm at home, I'm 90 years old, I like to play the lottery, and I can't get out to go to the store. So I want to buy my tickets. I'd rather buy it on my phone. So that's what these courier services are trying to say, is we serve those people. We serve the handicapped, we serve the people that are sick, we serve the people that are elderly. But it's a bunch of BS. I mean, you can set this thing up through the state lottery system and run through the lottery and regulate it. You can't have 226 million tickets sold, and that's more than the top 5 other services, 34 million, $200 million more. You're telling me, where's that money going? The money's going to the courier service. So why not make the state lottery more profitable and give them more technology? These machines are pretty standard. Now, if you look at a lot of the places, there's less machines to go to buy at the counter. They're turning them into vending machines. More and more vending machines are showing up places, and that's the only place to buy a lottery ticket is through a vending machine. So they're trying to take the human element out of it, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. We shouldn't have lottery tickets, online. I think that's where it's gambling, and with gambling, you get bad people, and bad people cause these types of issues.
Kurt, let's switch gears here just for a second. A couple months ago, we did an interview about the National Lottery, Mega Millions, increasing their price from $2 to $5. We talk about all these pilot projects the lotteries, states and national lotteries have going on. So that increase from $2 to $5, the commissioner said it was supposed to result in bigger jackpots. I haven't really seen that. It's been kind of toe to toe with the Powerball still. That's $3 less per ticket. What's going on?
Yeah, I've noticed that the jackpot amounts have not gone up as I thought they said they were going to go up. However, more people are winning money back, which, they're investing $5 and they're winning $5 or $6 because of the system. So there's more winners at the lower levels and bigger dollar amounts at the lower levels, not at the jackpot level. But when you look at it, I remember the first time I bought one of the new Mega Million tickets because I wanted to see what it looked like, if it changed at all. And the whole ticket changed. The printing changed. So my thought is that possibly the Mega Millions was due for some type of update, and they spent money to update the system, the electronic system and the computerized system. And because of that, it was going to cause a different printing in it. And they decided, hey, let's pass this cost on to the buyers, because, I noticed everything was a little bit different, and it really hasn't changed too much, but maybe there's more checks and balances now with Mega Million as opposed to Powerball going forward, because the printing is different, if you notice that. And in the past, the printing is always the same. Didn't matter what game you played, the numbers all look the same. So something happened where I'm wondering if Mega Millions and the Musil group decided they were going to make some improvements to their game, and it was going to cost some money. And they decided, well, how best do we roll this out? Do we eat the money or do we pass it on? I'm thinking maybe that's what happened, and they're passing on that cost to the buyers, and they're making them $5 tickets. I don't know, but I'm thinking that might have been the result of it.
The consensus I've seen from my viewers is I am no longer purchasing a Mega Millions ticket. They need to, reduce the ticket price back to $2. They just moved to the Powerball because it is pretty comparable. We talked about this potentially being one of those, trial runs. If it doesn't work, they reduce the tickets. Do you think they have too much skin in the game to do that? Do you think they have too much skin in the game to reverse it now? Or if it continues at this rate where people just stop playing, do they make the change?
Again, I think the lottery system, all these state lotteries, especially Musil, are going to have to take a look at what's happening in Texas and say, we need to revamp everything. We need to have a commission that's changing things. We need to address a bunch of issues. And until they sit down and address the bunch of issues, things aren't going to change. It would be interesting to see if you could go back right now over the last month or so and see how much has been wagered on Powerball versus Mega Million. I've never done that, but I'm sure there's a way of looking into that from all the different states. How many Powerball tickets versus how many Mega Million tickets? That would be an interesting thing to look at. But I know it's a lot more difficult to buy 5 or 10 Mega Million tickets these days because people need a lot more money to do it. They used to be able to just spend $10 and get 5 tickets. And I don't see the jackpot going. And that's really what people look at. People look at the jackpot. What is the potential for me to have this one-time big win? They don't look at, hey, I'm buying a $5 ticket, but I have a better chance of winning $10. They don't care about that. That's not the reason that they buy the ticket. They're buying the ticket because they want to win the $200 million. Now we got a lady who supposedly bought a ticket for $80 and is getting the runaround. So all that's going to be skeptical with a lot of people, and a lot of people. There's a whole generation of younger people right now that won't play the lottery. I talk to my kids about it, and they don't like playing. They don't play. They just think it's all a scam. And a lot of customers that I've talked to thought it was a scam too. Scam until they won, and then all of a sudden it was different. So, but also I would tell everyone, don't buy a ticket for today, because I already got a phone call earlier from someone that said they had gone to bed last night and they realized in their dreams that they were going to win today. So the winning ticket's already been purchased for today. So, I get those. Yeah. You gotta love people that have a dream, and the lottery provides them with that dream. And I love that about the lottery. And I love helping people going on there with their life, especially when they do it anonymously, and see all the good. I have some clients that, I just went to an event the other day, and the public charity was reaching out to me about getting one of my clients to make more of a charitable contribution, now during life as opposed to death. And I said, well, that's not how they operate. They're leaving a bunch of death, but they also want to make sure that they can pick and choose how they help out. So I have a couple clients that will watch something on TV and call me up and say, hey, I want to make a contribution to this event, this charity, because I like what they're doing. Please vet them out for me, and let's figure out a way to send them some money anonymously. And so I do it, So people do good with these lottery proceeds. It's not everyone that just, buys multiple homes all over the place. There's people do a lot of good, and they help family, they help their churches, they help their schools. A lot of good comes from the lottery, and it's unfortunate that we have to deal with this type of issue in Texas right now when there's a lot of good things that happen because of the lottery. So,
as I've said, if Kristen Moriarty, did everything kosher, everything's legal, I really hope that she gets the money, because like you said, it does change lives, and the odds are crazy to start off with. And the fact that she, picked her own numbers, I mean, that's kind of special. 83.5 million behind it.
And I just think that the Texas Rangers have been brought in to do a complete investigation of her background, everyone involved's background, and just to make sure that this wasn't a setup. That's all. I think that's once that gets concluded, they just got brought in. So it's going to take them a while to do all this stuff. It's almost like having the FBI come in and look at stuff for someone. So they'll do it. The right person will get the money. And I hope it is this lady. I hope that, she does get her due. I'd feel bad if she bought a ticket and didn't win. That would be horrible. At issue is, will the state of Texas say, hey, wait a minute, we know someone may have won. We're going to turn this money over to the court and let the court decide, what should happen to it. So that way, we don't have to pay out twice, type of thing. Because you're going to have someone that's going to win this next time. And that person's going to say, as I said earlier, they're going to say, wait a minute, did I just win 30 million? Or did I win the 30 million plus the other 80 some million before that because it should have just rolled over? So there's going to be some issues. It's not just, Kristen Moriarty. It's other people as well. So hopefully the Texas Rangers will do their job. They'll do all the investigation for this lady, her relationship with this attorney, relationship with DraftKings and all this other stuff that's going on. You have no idea until they do their investigation. They'll do a good job and they'll come up with a conclusion, and hopefully it'll be the right conclusion, and hopefully the right person will get paid the winning amount.
We'll have to see. Kurt, thank you so much for your time. Let's wrap this up, and I'm sure I'll be hearing from you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
All right, take care.